the time. If you're a guitar player, it's like.
What's up? This is Rudy here, joined by Paul Daly for another version of our MapSign Fraudcast, where we try to connect thought leaders in the industry with a different way of looking at fraud and what's happening and how dealers can find different solutions on how to solve it. And so I'm Rudy Nieto, CEO of MapSign, Paul Daly, founder and CEO of Asotu, commonly known as More Than Cars. He's got a cooler beard than me, but I did bring my hat.
Hey, it looks good on you.
California surfer dude.
Totally. You have a surfboard right outside. I can see it.
Yeah, I mean they're just stacking them up outside the office in Houston, no doubt. I wouldn't recommend that, by the way. So Paul, like, I think, okay, we can set the AI jokes aside for NADA. I think there were 72 vendors talking about AI at NADA.
In just the North Hall.
Oh, you know what? It felt like it was in triple digits, right? So AI was obviously the topic du jour. Everybody's got it. There's humanoids and this and that, but that's all fine and dandy. I think the interesting part and the insight is that because of the prevalence of AI, there's also those kinds of same tools that are whatever the fraudsters NADA is, where they go figure out how to steal cars. Like, I'm sure they have a fair amount of growth in that segment as well. And I think you had mentioned when we were talking about this call, like how much fraud has been like front and center at NADA in a way that I have not seen at NADA before. So tell me, I mean, you were talking to more dealers than me. What did you see?
Yeah, I definitely, like, first of all, is this like a lollipop friendly podcast? I think it is.
Yes.
Okay. Because it's Valentine's Day here at HQ, and like I haven't gotten Valentine's Day stuff since I was like a kid. And I got like this little thing. Remember the cards you used to have to buy? I was awful partial back in the day to the Ninja Turtle Valentine's Day cards.
Yeah. I mean, which one?
What was my Ninja Turtle? Guess what Ninja Turtle do you think was my Ninja Turtle? This will tell you.
Donatello?
Why?
I think he's more of a thinker before he takes action. That would be my insight.
It's actually Leonardo.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. He was the responsible one, always trying to keep people in check.
Okay.
But I can see Donatello. He was kind of like the artsy one, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he hit people with a stick.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, so I got the lollipop. NADA show. Yes, everybody's talking about AI, but I will say, and we've even seen this. Like, I get to cover the news every single morning, and the fraud conversation has absolutely been making its way up the awareness chart. When you and I first spoke, like the first time we really had a one-on-one, like 6 months ago or whatever, I wasn't really thinking of it at all. And I don't know, I don't think this is that whole thing, like, hey, I just bought, like a white 4Runner, and now all I see are white 4Runners. I don't think it's that. But you started talking about the fraud and the importance of like verification, especially with remote sales, and that I started thinking about it. But I will say in the last 6 months, that conversation has gotten more and more and more prevalent in the general conversation. And I think it ties back to AI because It's so much easier to fake stuff now. Like whether it's a job interview or whether it's an identity or whether it's, a dating app, right? We're seeing all these applications of real world AI now getting in the way. And so like I've absolutely, and what I've heard on the ground at the NADA show and what I've been observing in the news that we talk about every day, this conversation is one that is definitely now ranking, I think, in the top 10 conversations in the retail auto.
Yeah, definitely top of mind. I think 6 months ago we were getting calls to go get signed up, but it was longer process, took a lot of explanation. I see, and I'm guessing vendors who provide a fraud solution, the same thing is happening to them. So I'm sure a couple of them are watching this, but they'll get a call and like, hey, I'm selling a car right now and I need this. Like, so something's gotten in their vernacular about it. So you talk to the banks, right? I mean, that's not your primary persona that you're talking to, but you talk to
everybody, yeah.
And my perception is I think that's one of the key drivers of where that's coming from. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And the second piece I was going to add is Um, I'm not sure how much. I was going to get your opinion. What, if it's growing remotely and the in-store is kind of static, that's always been a smash and grab and fake IDs. Like, why is that it's growing so much remotely? And I think you said AI, but I wanted to kind of codify that. Like, that's where the growth in fraud is happening compared to a lot of the in-store gimmicks that have been happening in the past. So those two things, like, talk to me about the lenders and talk to me about why remote.
So a couple layers. I think just generally speaking, when we think about fraudsters, scammers, they rely on multiple steps of a process to give them a place to actually cause a breakdown, or at least put enough question in somebody's mind, like, oh, I'm sure it's fine, it's probably happened at this step or this step. So I think remote just naturally is the easy play, because there are more steps in the process, there are more steps, it gets further and further and further and further away from the point of origin. And so it makes it real easy. And now that, even dealers are spending time marketing outside their service area, marketing their vehicles outside their service area, the COVID told us, like, selling outside your area can be super profitable because you're finding the best end user for a vehicle, and that best end user might be 500 miles away. So let's figure out how to get the best end user for this vehicle. And I think the market conditions in general just are conducive to people buying vehicles, dealers wanting to sell vehicles further and further away. We have people like George Saliba and Alex Lawrence on the used car side.
Yeah.
Like even more so, courting the best end user for a vehicle, because every used vehicle is a unicorn, And so I feel like that in and of itself is just creating an environment for more fraud. And now with the ability to spin up AI documentation, AI video, AI voice, AI verification across platforms. I mean, people can spin up fake social profiles, websites, and all this stuff in an instant that verify, like, oh, that George is a small business owner from Kentucky. Look, here's the website for his, HVAC company, right? All these things that would make it verify from the bank standpoint. So dealers, right, looking at it from a loss standpoint. Oh, I'm going to spend all this time. I'm going to lose the vehicle, have to spend time to it, have to explain to the bank what happened, right? All these flags go up, and the dealer principal is like, we just lost 30 grand.
Yeah.
Right. At a car.
That's a good day.
Okay. Right. Yeah. No one's trying to scam a $15,000 vehicle. Right?
No, they're going for the Hondo. I mean, they're going for 100K. One other, I'm not sure if you saw this broadcast. I did one with the head of the Special Crimes Unit for HPD, Darren Schlosser, legend in the state of Texas. He goes around the U.S. helping people with understanding fraud. And I had kind of gone through all that with him. He's like, yeah, I get it. He's like, the thing that you're missing though is that, think about it from a, I always kind of go back to the pay plan. Think about it from a crook's perspective, right? Like, if I'm trying to steal from a dealership in person, I've got my crash test dummies. I have to pay them, and I have to, like, it's a binary kind of one at a time. Whereas, with the remotes, and by the way, if you get caught, like if they say, hey, this is BS,
you're right there.
Tell you to leave, they're going to have somebody waiting, right? And then you get hit with a felony in
that's pretty much the point of not getting caught when you're a criminal, right?
Yeah.
Be as far away from the cops as possible.
So the thing about remote is there's nobody sophisticated enough to catch them, right? And the reality is, sadly, what Darren explained, where all of these guys are connected to something probably worse happening behind the scenes. So these are funding lots of smuggling operations,
the worst of the worst,
trafficking. Like, these are some bad dudes. And so, I think the more people understand that, it actually is helping people get behind, hey, we can't let this happen. So, I think we're going to hear more about it. The lenders are. I was at AFSA right before NADA.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to crack the code, right? Like, how does this happen? How does fraud happen? And I've explained to them, like, you don't just be mad at the dealers, right? Like, this is not a dealer issue. This is an industry issue that everybody's got to solve, and that's why we're talking about it. So I am actually going to ask you the inverse of what we just discussed, because essentially what a dealer would do after NADA is, I'm going to go buy a bunch of AI tools that are going to make me all this money and help me eliminate people, and I'm going to go turn my dealership into Fort Knox, right? Because guilty until proven innocent mentality with fraud, because it's so prevalent, right? So I'm looking at that like, okay, less customer touch, more technology touch, potentially, if it's not, handled right, and a more like just a tougher verification process. I'm asking you, like, hey, you love people more than cars, right? So how do we feather the, hey, we still love our customers, right? And if we don't love our customers, the odds of them buying a car from us go way down, and their experience is bad, right? Because they feel like they're being treated like a crook. So I didn't see anybody at NADA, myself included, figuring out how to really solve for that. So I want to like unlock that, because I do think the disruptors out there kind of have figured it out a little bit more and a little bit better. They're a little sleuthier in how they do the verifications and prevent fraud, and I think they do take some losses still. So yeah, that's a very complicated question, but
Yeah. So a couple things. Whenever you have to implement any layer of security whatsoever, it is at the duress of the customer experience, no matter, or the user experience. If you're just talking about a web, like, I'll give you an easy example: a CAPTCHA, right?
Yeah.
It's annoying, right? I wish we didn't have to do them. Two-step verification. I'm just trying to log into my account. And so whenever the security measure, even if it's like, even TikTok slide, the little things or the picture matches, all of these things are naturally going to make the customer experience or the user experience worse. But the benefit on the other side is people aren't hacking into your account, right? So we've kind of accepted this as a culture that we need security verification in order to keep our stuff safe, especially our data. So I think as we think about it in the car business, there's a lot of conversation around customer experience. How do we increase it? How do we make it better? Because we know that customer experience is tied very closely to retention, although you can only track those things over time and not immediately. So when you think about, okay, we're going to be someone who's known, who will sell you a car anywhere, anytime, and you have to be thinking about customer experience. And all of a sudden, if someone feels like they're on their heels because you're asking about this or this or this, and you're already looking at them a little sideways, right? It's pretty jarring for someone who's not even thinking in a world that, like, I would ever try to steal or scam anyone out of anything, especially a car. And so I think it's naturally going to jettison you from the mindset of having a good customer experience. So I'm really interested in how you solve that problem, because I can hear, like, in one side of my head, there's some dealers who are like, well, we're selling to someone, they're out of state, they're not going to be a service customer, right? And like, you think about lifetime value of the customer. However, a lot of out-of-state transaction happen with friends, family members, who might be living out of state for college, or you referred somebody. There's a dealer that I refer all my friends to, and that dealer is Beaver Toyota in Cumming, Georgia, in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, I know that deal. I used to live in Cumming. Yep.
Okay, in Atlanta, because I know that they're going to get really well taken care of. But the flip side of that is, like, hey, if they have a bad experience, I'm going to hear about it. Right. And so I do think that there's, like, it's a really dynamic thing. Thinking of the customer experience, I'm really curious on, like, how do you how do you help solve that? Because if I'm a dealer, the second I hand my customer experience over to somebody else, I feel vulnerable.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't want to. I don't know if I have the silver bullet per se. I do know that in dealership, there's definitely opportunity. I mean, there's talk of, and I think there's all over the board. I mean, some people want to check your ID in the CRM, right? Some people want to go put it in a piece of hardware, and I'm not less a fan of the hardware, because you got to, like, take the license and you got to walk and go somewhere where they don't see what you're doing with it.
Yeah,
I think it's like understanding the chain of custody of that information, and why, and obviously a good salesperson's going to explain why. I think those are just really important. We implemented an app-based approach so that they wouldn't have to disengage from the customer. We like that, and there's a couple different ways to do that with other providers as well. But then again, when it needs to flow into your F&I process, so that when you get into F&I, if that's your model, there's a lot of re-verification going on, right? So it's like, okay, if you are going to do the fraud verification, it needs to be part of the workflow, not a standalone, we're going to do this over here, and now I'm going to go back into my CRM and do the thing, right? And then I'm going to go to F&I. And so some of that is the authenticity of the effort. Like, if I still have to go back and re-enter information or do something that would easily come from this, then you're kind of like, well, where did that go? I think, full stop, nobody should be having consumers text. Any consumer that texts a picture of their driver's license should also, scold themselves, because that's very dangerous to text it to somebody.
I've done it.
Number. I know, we've all done it. It's just very dangerous, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And so again, I think a mobile first, where the consumer is most comfortable, and make sure that information is actionable as part of a full workflow. Like, they're not having to re-enter information. And if it can do more things, like I've seen some stuff out there where it can quickly jump into an insurance verification or something to that effect. And the last thing I've noticed is, when I was working in a dealership, I guess I thought I was pretty good at it too. Is like, everybody thinks they can spot a fraud, right? Everybody's like, I can spot the fraud. I don't know if you came by our booth. We did like a little spot the fraud contest. So we collected all these fake IDs that we had found, and we let everybody come up and tell us, like, now, given it was blown up to like a full TV screen. All right, tell us where the fake is, right? Like, where did they fake?
Oh, that's fun.
Right. And then, but then when we shrunk it to the size of a driver's license, we're like, all right, now tell us where the fake is. Right. So, so if there's a possibility to have third-party help, like some kind of, there's tools out there where you can get forensic assistance, where they'll have some live agents that are kind of sitting to help you, check and see, hey, there's maybe something going on here. There's that too. So I don't know if there's a perfect solution, but again, my encouragement would just be, think about the consumer as you're implementing all this. And yes, you need to verify, and you need to not get your car stolen, but there's always probably a better way to do it than just give me your driver's license or you can't drive the car. You might be a crook, right? And that's how it can come off.
All right, I have two things. One is, have you heard about what people are doing with this Clawbot?
No.
It's Molt. Okay, so it's a new kind of AI. I don't know. Think of it like an air traffic controller that lives on your computer. A lot of people are buying a Mac Mini, loading it onto there, but basically gives it access to whatever you want to give access to. So here is an AI that can control a machine, that can open apps, that can browse windows, that can click on buttons, that can act as an assistant. I can give it access to my iMessage. I can give it access to my email, and all of a sudden my calendar, right? And then it can help research things, put pieces together. And a number of my friends and I are kind of into this now. I have a little Mac Mini, and like mine's like locked down. But one of the things that made me realize like sophistication is really growing is that I asked it to do something on Twitter, right? And I interact with it via text message, which is one of the things for me, like iMessage. I just message it and it does its thing because it's right there.
Okay.
I asked it to like find some stuff on Twitter for me. And here's what it said. It said, now I set this up on a Mac Mini on a separate part of the computer that was locked down. So I have my main account, and then I have a second account, right, where that is installed and logged in. And it said this to me. Well, I tried to do that on Twitter, but Twitter limited how many things I could search without an account. Don't worry. What I did was I went into your browser history. I found a session token. I used that to log into your Twitter account. And now I can go and get you what you asked for. But don't worry, I didn't see your password, and I won't post anything on your Twitter account unless you explicitly tell me to. And I was like, oh, dang. And then my friend, as I was talking about it, he gave it access to all of his text messages. So when you're texting him, you have to be like, hey, am I talking to the real Ben right now? Right? It's Ben Hadley. And one of the things that we were thinking about as I was talking to Kyle, Kyle, yeah. We're like, oh, anything I've ever texted Ben now, yeah, this AI has access to. So when you're thinking about like being able to like send your license to people, now I'm thinking like every salesperson I've ever texted my license to, that record now exists somewhere that could potentially be accessed by some AI tool or whatever that can then use it for, obviously in a perfect world, no one has a nefarious intention. So that's like the one angle I'm going, like when it comes to like, hey, make sure the stuff is secure, that you're actually moving through the pipeline through a secure means, because it's more vulnerable than it's ever been. But the next point, back to our conversation about customer experience, I think Carvana's done a really great job, right? Because their customer experience is vertical. You buy the car from their site. They send their person to you, verify your identity, sign the paperwork, give you the vehicle.
Well, they do include that in person at the end, and that's kind of
what I'm saying.
Mav, we do preach that is like, the last leg of the stool, right? It's like, I think anybody can verify identity, but not everybody can confirm humanity, right? And that's like becoming the differentiator, like what are the senses that AI can spoof? Video and sound, right?
Easily.
Hadn't figured out and I'm not ruling it out either, but it hasn't figured out touch, taste, or smell yet.
We're decades away from that.
Yeah, that would be really terrifying. But
it's coming, but we're a while.
At that point, we're talking Skynet. So I don't know if you ever heard the fun. Like my favorite AI story was Facebook was early on big into AIs, and they had like the first real AI bots have a conversation. If you haven't heard the story, it's a great Google. They created Bob and Alice, who were AI bots, and they wanted to see it as a language experiment. So they let it run, and after a while, the AI decided that to create their own language.
Heard about this, right?
It became completely unintelligible to humans.
English is too inefficient, right?
They decided that the modern language and the alphabet were too too mundane. So it created its own language, and we had no idea what they were communicating about, and so they had to shut it down because goodness knows what they were saying. So I mean,
well. Tell me about the humanity side of it. So, a dealer has somebody buy a car 500 miles away. We'll say they're going to ship the car.
Yep.
And how do you confirm humanity at that point? Because typically, like, I've bought cars remote where like the driver does it.
Right.
Right. And most times the driver didn't even speak English. And right, like I had to sign a few things. They checked an ID. Right. If I had, I mean, I could easily have gotten away with something if I had the fake. Right. So like, what's the solution to that?
Yeah. I mean, and again, I don't know if it's the perfect process yet. I mean, our recommendation is, we enable a 50-state signing agent network. Dealers can also go find their own if they have the skills to go kind of vet and raise.
You need scale to really be able to do that. So you have relationships in all 50 states where like you have this network that's vetted, verified.
Yeah.
And so someone's like, I'm selling this car, and you're like, great, you're in Wyoming, right? This part. So you deploy then this agent network to do what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like in a much smaller, at a much smaller audience, it's like an Uber Lyft, right, for car deals. So like I have this car deal, it needs to get inked. And I would, one thing that is unanimous is most dealers are like, hey, I'm not shipping that car until I see something signed back. And so, the signing agent goes out and can make sure all that happen. Again, dealers can find their own signing agent locally if they have the capability to do that and trust that. I think our view is that we're combining technology with people as opposed to just technology or just people. So we like that balance. And, I would recommend the dealers trying to figure that out. I mean, if you do look at what Carvana and some of the others are doing, I mean, they have a person at the end, despite all the stuff, right? Mm-hmm. They have a person at the end, and there's a reason for that. What I do really love about what they do is it's usually I'm getting the car at the same time as that final verification. And I would love to say we're there, but I don't know if logistically
that's even possible.
I mean, we could just decide to become our own logistics company, but I have a feeling that would.
Yeah, no, I mean that is one of the challenges, right? Like finding good transporters. I mean, I guess that's just an insane challenge if you don't have full vertical integration, right? Where you can go hub to hub and then last mile it from the hub.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's like, the majority, like 100% of Carvana's cars are sold remote. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed.
What do you think the average dealer, like, what are they selling a month, like out of area where they would use something like this?
When I talk to domestic dealers, it's typically they're going to say somewhere 8 to 10%. But if you talk Highline, I mean, they might say 20, 25, 30. I mean, good. I mean,
and the stakes are a lot higher.
Yeah. Yeah, and the stakes are higher. And again, executing the other issue with that consumer experience is it's getting F&I people comfortable with that offsite because they don't historically like it. Like, what are the things they don't like about it? They don't buy as much product. They bring their own financing. We don't get a fair at bat. All those things. But I think there's some dealers out there, and I'll give a shout out to like Doug Horner from Benz and Bowties. Like they do a full F&I presentation. We've got, we have a video platform in ours. I'm sure other people have other things they can do there, but they get a full at bat. And what they're finding is they're making just as much money on the gross and selling just as many products because, the consumers are in a comfortable spot and they're being treated just like they're in the dealership. So I do think that's another challenge that those dealers have figured out how to solve for as they're selling remotely. The dealers that don't want to sell remotely, I see as the F&I issue. F&I people typically don't like the offsites as much because they don't make as much commission, and they feel the risk. And from a dealer's perspective, they don't realize that they can solve for this remote fraud issue. But based off of the discussion at NADA, I think they're becoming aware that there are fraud solutions out there that they can execute. And if you don't, you said it. If they don't, you're just limiting all the eyeballs in your inventory, and it's not a great long-term proposition. So
I think one thing that we can count on is that there is going to be an exponential increase in the amount of distrust everyone has toward what it is that you're seeing, whether or not it's real or not.
True.
Like, I don't think that is never, ever going back. Now, we'll come up with other ways to verify, right? Like, it's going to be on blockchain where I take a picture and it's like, that was confirmed, taken from a camera through a lens with, but I think that we're so there. People just don't realize it yet. I bet that half of the fake content online, people don't even know it's fake. The majority of people don't know what they're looking at is not actually a real person, or listening to a real voice, or listening to a song that a robot made. And I think that the distrust and the skepticism is going to increase. So we need ways to solve that across the board, just in regular everyday life, but specifically for us, right, in verifying very high dollar transactions across state lines.
Yeah. And again, people have to remember, why is this such a big deal here? Why isn't this an issue with homes and other things? It's like, hey, these things can move. And
yeah, have you ever bought a home? It is so hard.
Yeah. I mean, buying a home, it's not going anywhere.
You can't buy a home in an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or 3 days or 3 weeks.
No. Well, the one thing I would tell you they're doing with homes now is they're not just getting like a secure signing agent to get wet ink signatures and they're doing DocuSign. They're actually having somebody to show up, and they're trying to sign electronically now because there's faster funding and all that. But they're actually having a living, breathing person show up to watch you electronically sign it. So it's like a new technology. It's not a new technology thing. It's called, I have to ask my CTO this. I think it's called ePIN, and it's essentially a different type of signing agent, a different type of notary certificate where they can actually physically verify the electronic impression versus the ink impression. So I think that'll probably be another evolution of authenticity, because wet ink can be.
Yeah, well, these days it's like, let's be honest. Wet ink is way easier to fake than an e-signature, in my opinion, because I've never seen anyone compare my wet ink signature on every page that I sign to my actual signature.
The notary publics are supposed to. That's what they're trained to do. But here's what else I would tell you.
For whatever license I give them that has my signature on it.
That is true. The other thing to ask yourself, though, is in e-sign, in the world of e-sign, who, if I was fraudulent, I control wherever the two-factor authentication is going. So it's like, there's that too. I mean, e-sign could be e-steal.
That's true.
Quick.
That's true.
It's like, it's going to be.
Let's just move into the woods.
I mean, go Barney Rubble on it, but I don't think that's the solution either. Look, it's been a great conversation, because I think dealers are going to watch this and be like, yes, I need to do this. I just want them to feel like they can still provide a good consumer experience and protect their dealership and make money all at the same time. And doesn't have to be. I wouldn't even start with the product. I would start with the belief, and then let whatever solution set you have kind of fill in the blanks. There's lots of good tools out there. You know what I mean? But it's like, not tool first. Like, let's have the belief in the process.
Agree.
First. So that's where Osotu comes in. So that's why I had you on the show. I'm just going to give a quick chance for any visitors who want to ask Paul a question. He is way cooler than me, and he's got more hats as well. If anybody's got any questions, it looks like a shout out from our friend James Ganther from Mosaic.
Yeah, talking about my gray beer hair. You better believe it, buddy.
Yeah,
I earned these.
Yep. So if anybody's got anything to ask for Paul on how he sees it, but it sounds like we covered a lot. If you want to follow up with myself or Paul, we'll be reclipping this and putting it back out on LinkedIn and YouTube after the live presentation's over. But we're at the half hour, so I'm going to tell everybody, go have a very, I guess I would say have an unlucky Friday the 13th, because isn't that like a double negative? Because Friday.
Yes.
So hopefully whatever was going to happen on Friday the 13th doesn't happen. If you're going out on a date for Valentine's Day, which I hope you're doing with your significant other, please be careful if you're doing that tonight or tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to taking my bride on a hot date. So hope y'all get to do the same. All right. Well, we are going to hang it up before our visitors continue lampooning Paul anymore here. Enjoying the comments there from Jim Ganther.
It's his love language.
All right, folks. Have a great weekend. And as I always like to sign off, and I'm going to let you say it with me, Paul. I say be a Maverick. So let's hear it.
Are we 1, 2, and 3 in this?
1, 2, 3.
Be a Maverick.
All right. See y'all later.